For over 2 centuries, the absolute peak of British high society held a secret so deeply guarded, so unthinkable to the Victorian aristocracy, that an entire branch of a royal family tree was systematically rewritten to hide it. Documents were altered, paper trails were erased, and a mother was torn away from her 9-year-old child, never to be seen or heard from again. They believed the secret was safely buried beneath layers of aristocratic prestige, shielded forever by polished family trees, leather-bound registers, and prestigious titles. But on June 14, 2013, modern genetic science delivered a seismic revelation that sent shockwaves straight through the heart of Buckingham Palace. DNA testing confirmed that Prince William, the future King of England, Supreme Governor of the Church of England, and future head of the Commonwealth, carries direct South Asian ancestry. His 5 times great-grandmother was not the European noblewoman official records had claimed for generations. She was an Indian woman named Eliza Kiwark, living in the bustling trading hub of Surat under the reign of the East India Company. This is not a conspiracy theory, nor is it modern speculation. It is an unassailable scientific fact. It is the story of how an empire tried to erase a mother from history to preserve the myth of racial purity, and how, 200 years later, genetic science gave a silenced woman her voice back, forever altering the bloodline of the British Monarchy. To understand how a secret survived 2 centuries of intense royal scrutiny, you have to look at the exact moment the truth finally shattered. In June of 2013, the British media erupted following a staggering announcement from Britain's DNA, a specialized genetic testing organization operating out of Scotland. Led by Dr. Jim Wilson, a distinguished geneticist at the University of Edinburgh, a team of researchers announced findings that permanently redefined royal history. The scientists had set out to analyze mitochondrial DNA, the unique genetic code passed down exclusively from mother to child in an unbroken maternal chain. Because mitochondrial DNA undergoes virtually no change across centuries, every single person on Earth carries the exact genetic footprint of their direct maternal ancestors, going back thousands of years to trace the lineage without creating diplomatic gridlock or requiring royal permission. Dr. Wilson's team did not test Prince William directly. Instead, they acquired saliva samples from 2 living maternal relatives of Princess Diana. These relatives were linked through an unbroken chain of mothers and daughters stretching back 7 generations, originating with Diana's mother, Frances Shan Kidd, and tracing all the way back to an 18th century figure named Eliza Kewark. When the genetic sequence was finalized in the Edinburgh laboratory, the team discovered a genetic signature that left them breathless. Haplogroup R30b. Haplogroup R30b is an exceedingly rare mitochondrial marker. At the time of the study, this exact sequence had been documented in only 14 individuals worldwide. 13 of those individuals were native to India, and 1 was from Nepal. Not a single individual of European or Armenian descent possessed this genetic code. The scientific probability of this being a coincidence was 0. Prince William, the man destined to sit on the historic throne of St. Edward, was genetically proven to be $1.256 X-text Indian. While 1/256 X-text testicle cells may sound small to a casual observer, in genetic terms, it is absolute, indisputable proof of direct, unbroken heritage. When Prince William ascends the throne, he will make history as the very first British monarch with confirmed South Asian blood. For a nation whose empire once subjected the Indian subcontinent to colonial rule under the ideological banner of European superiority, this revelation was an incredible twist of historic karma. But to understand how this genetic marker remained hidden inside the Spencer family tree for over 200 years, you have to look at the elaborate lie constructed to keep it in the dark. For over 2 centuries, official genealogical records maintained that Eliza Kiwark was of Armenian descent, according to aristocratic peerage books. Eliza came from an Armenian merchant family residing in India. To Victorian high society, labeling an ancestor as Armenian was a clever and socially acceptable cover. Armenia was viewed by the 19th century British elite as exotic yet European enough to avoid the brutal racial prejudice of the era. It allowed noble families to explain away non-European complexions, darker eyes, or distinct facial features without ever admitting to mixed-race heritage. This false representation was meticulously maintained across generations. It survived the Victorian era, persisted through the reign of King George VI, and was accepted as absolute truth when Lady Diana Spencer married Prince Charles in 1981 in what was hailed as the fairy tale wedding of the century. The entire world believed that Lady Diana represented the absolute pinnacle of white, European, blue-blooded British aristocracy. Researcher Alistair Moffat, who investigated Eliza's background alongside the genetic team, revealed that Eliza's Indian identity had been intentionally erased from historical documentation. The Spencer family tree had been quietly altered. Her real identity was stripped away, replaced by an Armenian cover story designed to satisfy society's obsession with racial purity. The family knew the truth in quiet whispers, but the public narrative remained completely bulletproof until modern genetics stepped in and proved that the paper trail was a lie to piece together the human tragedy behind this genetic discovery. You must travel back to around 1790 to the port city of Surat in the Gujarat region of western India. At the turn of the 19th century, Surat was a major global economic center. Long before it became famous for processing 90% of the world's diamonds, Surat was a bustling international port where merchants from across the globe gathered to trade textiles, spices, and precious metals under the rule of the British East India Company. The East India Company was not merely a business enterprise. It was a ruthless corporate empire that governed vast territories with its own private armies, treating an entire continent as a profit-generating machine. Eliza Kiwark was born in Surat around 1790. Her father was likely an Armenian trader, as suggested by her surname Kiwark, a variant of the Armenian name Kavor. Letters addressed to her were written in Armenian script, reflecting the long-standing presence of Armenian merchant communities in India. But while her father carried Armenian heritage, her mother was an Indian woman, a reality confirmed beyond all doubt by the mitochondrial DNA passed down through Diana's line. Then came Theodore Forbes. Born in 1788, Theodore was the third son of a landowning Scottish family. Under the rigid British tradition of primogeniture, the eldest son inherited the family's entire estate, while younger sons were left with little to no inheritance. Desperate to build a fortune of his own, the 20-year-old Theodore boarded a ship bound for India to work as a merchant and administrator for the East India Company. Upon settling in Surat, Theodore hired Eliza Kiwark. In official British records and company registers, Theodore listed Eliza as his housekeeper. But as historical research confirms, the word housekeeper in colonial India carried a far more complex and often exploitative meaning. British men operating in India frequently formed domestic and sexual relationships with local women. These arrangements were rarely recognized as formal marriages, leaving the women with no legal protection, no social standing, and complete dependence on their British employers. Eliza lived with Theodore and bore him two children, a daughter named Catherine, born in 1812, and a son named Alexander, born in 1814. Despite sharing a home and raising children together, Theodore never married Eliza. In his private ledgers, his attitude toward her was cold, calculated, and deeply legalistic. He referred to her not as his wife or partner, but as his housekeeper, and went so far as to label her as the purported mother of his daughter Catherine. This choice of words reflected a deep detachment, a man laying the legal groundwork to distance himself from an Indian woman whenever it became convenient for his social mobility back home. In 1821, the tragedy that would echo down through generations finally struck. Theodore Forbes decided it was time to return to Scotland. Having secured enough wealth in India, he set his sights on rejoining elite British society. But he faced a major problem. Returning to Britain with an Indian partner and mixed-race children would make him a social outcast. Theodore made a devastating choice. He decided to take his 9-year-old daughter, Catherine, away from India to be raised in Britain, leaving her mother behind. Imagine the sheer trauma of that moment. 9-year-old Catherine was torn away from the only home, language, and culture she had ever known, separated from her mother, and placed on a ship bound for the cold, unfamiliar shores of Scotland. Eliza Kewark watched her young daughter sail away, completely aware that she would likely never see her again. After Catherine's departure, Eliza vanished entirely from official records. There are no documents detailing the remainder of her life, no records of when she died, and no headstones bearing her name. As Dr. Jim Wilson noted during his research, history simply erased her. She was abandoned in Surat, stripped of her children, and forgotten by the very family line she had helped create. Meanwhile, young Catherine arrived in Scotland to begin a completely reinvented life. She was placed in respected institutions, educated in British etiquette, and given one non-negotiable directive: never speak of her mother. Catherine was instructed to erase India from her mind and assimilate fully into Scottish high society. Prince William and Prince Harry issued no statements regarding the discovery. When Prince William visited India on an official royal tour in 2016, his itinerary focused strictly on diplomatic and charitable duties, completely avoiding any public mention of his ancestral connection to Gujarat. The British government was reportedly eager to leverage the discovery to strengthen trade relations and diplomatic ties with India, a rising global economic powerhouse and a key pillar of the Commonwealth. Having a future king with verified Indian blood was a historic public relations opportunity, yet the royal family chose to let the news quietly pass. Maintaining their trademark institutional silence on deeply personal family matters, the story of Eliza Kiwark is far more than a curious piece of royal trivia. It is a profound lesson about power, prejudice, and the pursuit of truth. For 2 centuries, official history was written by those in power. Colonial institutions and Victorian aristocrats had the authority to alter documents, erase identities, and enforce silences to protect their social standing. They successfully separated a mother from her child and erased her grave from the map. They believed that by scrubbing her name from the family ledgers, Eliza Kiwark would be forgotten forever. But they failed to account for science. They did not realize that every time a mother gives birth to a daughter, she passes down an indelible, immutable genetic code that no record office can alter and no empire can destroy. Today, Eliza Kiwark's DNA lives on through Prince William, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Because mitochondrial DNA moves exclusively through the female line, Princess Charlotte now carries that exact same rare haplogroup R30b sequence, ensuring that the genetic legacy of an abandoned Indian woman in Surat remains permanently woven into the future of the British crown. The revelation of Prince William's South Asian heritage reminds us that behind every carefully curated family tree are the real human stories that were pruned away, the mothers who were silenced, the records that were altered, and the truths that were hidden. Official history is merely what was written down by the powerful, but genetic science proves that no lie lasts forever. 200 years later, Eliza Kiwark is no longer forgotten. Her story is finally known, her identity is restored, and her bloodline reaches all the way to the throne of England.